Someone is manipulating you right now. Not a stranger, not an enemy, someone you trust. And the most unsettling part isn't that it's happening. It's that it has been happening for a long time. And some part of you already knew. You just had no language for what you were seeing. That changes today. Because manipulation at its highest level doesn't look like manipulation. It looks like care. Looks like honesty. It looks like someone who just happens to always need something from you. And the people who do this best, the ones who've made it a lifestyle, don't sit in dark rooms calculating moves. They operate on instinct, on social conditioning, on patterns they learned so early in life that they don't even realize they're running them. That's what makes this dangerous. You can't defend against something you don't see. And most people never see it. They just feel the weight of it, the slow erosion of their confidence, their decisions, their sense of reality, without ever being able to name the cause. So let's name it. The first technique is called the slow redefinition. It doesn't happen in one conversation. It doesn't come from one person making one statement. It builds over weeks, months, sometimes years. And by the time it's complete, you've accepted a version of yourself that someone else constructed for you. This is how it works. Someone begins making small observations about who you are. Not accusations, but observations. They say things like, "You've always been the sensitive one," or "That's just how you are," or "You tend to overthink things." Each statement alone means nothing, but repeated across time, from someone whose opinion you value, they start to calcify. They become part of your identity. And once something is part of your identity, you stop questioning it. You start filtering your own decisions through the lens they built. You decline opportunities because that's not really who I am. You accept limitations because someone convinced you those limitations were native to you, when really they were assigned. The slow redefinition is most effective when it's wrapped in concern. "I'm saying this because I know you," they'll claim. And because it comes from someone close, it bypasses your natural defenses. You don't resist it. You absorb it. Ask yourself, how many beliefs you have about your own limitations were actually placed there by someone else? The second technique is manufactured urgency. Pay attention to the people in your life who always need something right now. There's never time to think, never space to consider. The window is always closing, the moment is always critical. And if you don't act immediately, something will be lost. This pressure is not accidental, it is designed. Urgency collapses the gap between stimulus and response. And in that collapsed gap, your judgment doesn't function at its full capacity. You react instead of deciding. You comply instead of choosing. The skilled manipulator understands something about the human mind that most people never examine. When you feel urgency, your attention narrows. Your field of perception shrinks to the immediate problem. And while you're focused on the immediate problem, you stop noticing the larger structure around you. The request that needs answering right now is rarely the actual issue. The actual issue is what you stop seeing while you scramble to answer it. This is why high-pressure sales exists. This is why ultimatums are issued in relationships. This is why certain people always seem to arrive in your life during moments of crisis with a solution ready. The crisis itself may have been cultivated. Slow down. Anyone who cannot tolerate your deliberate thought before a significant decision does not have your interests at the center of the arrangement. The third technique is the gift that builds debt. Not every favor is generosity. Some favors are investments, and the interest rate isn't disclosed at the time of the transaction. The person who picks up your meal, who helps you move, who introduces you to someone important, who listens for hours when you needed to talk. They may genuinely be doing these things out of care, or they may be building a ledger. You don't know which one it is until they come to collect. And when they do, the collection doesn't look like extortion. It looks like a reasonable ask from someone who has given you so much. It looks like, after everything I've done for you. It looks like a quiet reminder that the scales are uneven. The psychological weight of this is immense. Reciprocity is one of the deepest social drives human beings carry. When someone gives, something in you wants to give back. This isn't weakness. It's a social mechanism that has held communities together for thousands of years. But in the hands of the wrong person, it becomes a leash. Notice who tracks what they've done for you. Notice who reminds you. Genuine generosity has no memory. The fourth technique is selective truth. This one is the most sophisticated because it requires no lies. The selective truth manipulator never says anything false. They simply choose which truths to share and which ones to let you discover. Usually after the point where that discovery could have changed your decision. They'll tell you the good news. They'll let the bad news arrive on its own. They tell you that the opportunity is rare and promising. They don't mention the risk profile. They tell you that the person you're about to trust is charming and successful. They leave out the pattern of behavior they're aware of. They answer the question you asked with complete accuracy, while knowing the question you should have asked would reveal everything. This technique is extraordinarily difficult to defend against because your logical mind will not flag it as deception. Technically, nothing dishonest was said, but information has weight, and withholding weight changes the balance of a decision. The tell is what gets volunteered versus what gets revealed under pressure. Someone operating with full transparency doesn't wait for you to ask the right question. They give you the full picture because the full picture serves you. Someone operating with selective truth gives you just enough to move in the direction they've chosen for you, then watches you arrive at a conclusion they already knew you'd reach. Your conclusions are only as reliable as the information that formed them. The fifth technique is emotional contamination. Some people cannot regulate their own internal states, and rather than managing that privately, they disperse it into the room, into the people around them, into the emotional atmosphere of every interaction they enter. This is not always conscious, but the effect is identical, whether it's intentional or not. You walk into a conversation neutral. You walk out anxious. You couldn't point to a single moment where something alarming happened, but the feeling followed you home. This is contamination. What they're doing, consciously or not, is transferring their unresolved internal state into your emotional system. The sighs that demand inquiry, the silences that carry accusation, the tone that says everything is fine while communicating clearly that nothing is. The vague references to being tired or stressed that create an obligation in you to diagnose and soothe. You become the emotional regulator for someone who refuses to regulate themselves. And the insidious nature of this is that it activates something decent in you. Your empathy, your care, your instinct to help. So you feel guilty calling it manipulation, because they seem to be suffering. And they are. But suffering, in this context, has become a tool. The person who consistently leaves you emotionally exhausted, depleted, or responsible for their inner state. That is not a coincidence of chemistry. That is a dynamic that was built. The sixth technique is social triangulation. You never hear it directly. Instead, a third party appears. Someone tells you that another person said something about you, or felt something about you, or has concerns about something you did. You can't address it directly. You can't verify it fully. You're left to respond to a shadow. Triangulation creates a social architecture where information always passes through a central node, the manipulator, and is filtered accordingly. They control what you know about others and what others know about you. They can amplify tension between you and someone else by carrying the right version of the right statement to the right person. They can also create loyalty by appearing to defend you to others while carefully stoking the doubt. The most refined version of this technique makes itself invisible by always appearing to be doing the opposite. The person running triangulation most effectively presents as a confidant, a bridge, a neutral party who just happens to be deeply embedded in every significant relationship around you. Notice the person who is always involved, who always knows, who is always the one delivering information about others. That proximity is not coincidence. That position was built. The seventh technique is the moving standard. You can never quite satisfy it. Whatever the requirement was yesterday, it shifts today. Whatever you did to meet the expectation becomes the new floor, acknowledged briefly, then forgotten. The standard always moves just beyond where you are. This technique is particularly effective in long-term relationships, professional or personal, because it works through gradual calibration. Each increment is small enough to seem reasonable. Each new expectation arrives with a logical justification. But if you could step back and compare where you started to where you are now, you would see that you've been slowly shaped into a version of yourself that exists primarily to serve someone else's shifting requirements. And the cruelest element of the moving standard is what it does to your self-perception over time. You start to believe that you are fundamentally not enough, that no matter how much you improve, you never quite arrive, that there is something inherently lacking in you, rather than something deliberately constructed in the dynamic. That belief keeps you striving. And as long as you're striving for approval that was never meant to arrive, you stay in the arrangement. The standard will never stop moving. That is not a design flaw. It is the design. Here is what you understand now that most people around you never will. Manipulation does not require a villain with a plan. It requires patterns, and humans, given the right conditions, will run the same patterns their entire lives without ever examining them. Some of what you've seen in this video comes from people who were taught these patterns by people who were taught the same patterns. The damage is real, regardless of the intent behind it. But here's where this gets darker. Understanding these techniques doesn't just show you what others do to you. It shows you what you may have been doing to others, without ever knowing you were doing it. That recognition sits differently, because the most dangerous version of manipulation isn't the calculated kind. It's the unconscious kind. The patterns operating beneath awareness, beneath language, beneath the story you tell yourself about who you are and how you treat people. The slow redefinition, the manufactured urgency, the gift with a ledger attached. Most people never look this clearly at their own behavior. They examine the people around them. They study who's doing what to whom. They learn to identify the techniques in others while remaining completely blind to the version running inside them. Which means there is a layer to this that hasn't been fully examined yet. And that layer, the one beneath the patterns, beneath the learned behavior, beneath the psychology, is where everything actually originates. That's what comes next.